I'm born in 1965 in Toronto. I have one younger sister. A typical life for a Canadian boy. I grew up playing a lot of hockey. And I think that's informed my dance, that I played a lot of hockey. Yeah, my mother was a secretary, my father was a school teacher. We go into the school, my sister and I, on Saturday mornings while my father worked in the office. And we would get out all of the equipment from the gymnasium. They call it parkour now. We didn't have a name for the game. We'd set up all of the equipment and play with it. I was I was interested in the physicality of movement as a child. I didn't realize that dance was actually a career path at that time. I may have chosen that, but I was growing up wishing to be a hockey player. Okay, there was something innate. I did want to dance, but you know, whatever. I played hockey. That's the end of that story. But then later on, around when I was well, it was after this accident when I was 32 that I decided I'm going to dance. I'm going to, you know, I survived an accident that could have been terminal, and I thought, well, this is my new lease on life. I can do whatever I want. And I'm going to go and dance. And so it was sort of a rebirth or a reinvention of myself to take up dance at that stage. My understanding of the story is Steve Paxton was doing a lot of Aikido and Tai Chi in the 60s. And various exercises, there's standing meditation. And he was doing these things. Also, he was a dancer, you know, a very successful dancer. But he began exploring the standing meditation and how you feel. And that's what I think was a total shift in paradigm for dance and a pure genius. Steve Paxton was teaching Aikido rolls to blind people. And so what he was demonstrating was this point of contact, diagonal point of contact across the body. How whether he was doing this with manipulating his own body, but he was trying to get them to feel, what does this feel like, and know what the Aikido roll will feel like when they go to do it against the floor, and to replicate those feelings. And he said that this is how the birth of contact improvisation. That's a true story. He did say that. Whether it is true, I don't know, but he truly said that. I think at the same time, he was also exploring with the Aikido roll this idea that you run and leap, run into the ground, roll, and there's a conservation of energy. You don't run and leap and smash into the floor. You don't make noise. You try to be as quiet and soft as possible. And in that softness is a conservation of energy, that it's not wasted. Stop, thump. There was another philosophical concept of what else? What follows? What else happens after you do this? Then what? And where do you redirect that energy? And at some point, bodies coming together. And then what else? And how do we conserve? Instead of smashing, how do we softly roll into each other, having a rolling point of contact? And I don't know the order, what the syntax was, what the sequence was. But we do know that at this sort of short period of time, they were exploring the stand. How do I genuinely feel? Aikido rolls, jumper catcher exercises, jumper catcher, you run, I catch you. And we look at what else? Where do we go? And how do we do this in a way that we don't get hurt? How do we just conserve the energy and tumble and roll? You know, another famous contact improv teacher described it as grizzly bear cubs tumbling down a hill. And they're just rolling and playing. There's a huge component of play in this, where we're exploring what else. It's not a competition. If it was a competition, we would come at each other with force and compete. This is a play. It's a game. Yeah, that is the genesis of contact improvisation for me, is because I, you know, at 32 years old, I had this accident. I was on a bicycle, got tossed off the bicycle by a car, and my skull was fractured. And so when I woke up, I had these neurological deficits. My left side was sort of, left arm wasn't working properly, left leg would be dragging, tripping up and down stairs. And I realized, just by an intuitive sense, I needed to do something to recover the neurology, the proprioception and balance. Luckily I chose Contact Improv. Of all dances, I just thought, I should dance. And of all, I picked Contact Improv, and it was just luck that I went that route. This is a lot of luck. There's other styles of Tai Chi. The one that I chose happened to focus on spiral movement. There's other styles of Tai Chi that focus on fighting. This one is about health, and it was very much about spiral movement in all aspects of the body, whether it's turning the hands, turning, twisting, and all these twisting exercises. And, coincidentally, Contact Improv is also based on this same concept of spiral movement. Steve Paxton's approach to Contact Improv focuses a lot on spiraling. I think, and this is just my sense, I think by observation, they were seeing that the bodies, when making things work, the bodies were in a twist. Now, Steve had this background in Aikido, and so he had this spiral movement in his body. The Aikido roll is a diagonal roll, but there is a twisting of the body that is into the spiral. I think that was informing his movement choices. Then it became more obvious in the Contact Improv. It was a long time, maybe more than 10 years of exploring Contact Improv and Tai Chi before I realized, before I came across spiral rolls as Steve Paxton teaches them. It was more than 10 years of practicing before I learned that there was a correlation between the two. There are different styles of Tai Chi, and this Tai Chi that I studied is largely based on spiral movement, but there is also an emphasis of lining up the bones and not using your muscles, staying relaxed. There's an emphasis on that. And when I had been doing Tai Chi prior to the accident, and when I took up Contact Improv after the accident, I found it really bizarre going to workshops and they're using the exact same language. Don't use your muscles, line up your bones when you're lifting. And so this has led to me as a dancer being a good base. That's something that I find lacking in a lot of dancers, is the ability to be stable as a base and move your partner around. A very short period of doing Contact Improv and Tai Chi, dancers would say to me, well, it's obvious you study martial arts. And so I didn't realize what they meant. I didn't understand how they knew that, but they could tell by how I moved that I had a background in martial arts and not in dance. And so that offered something unique and different. And dancers, some dancers were repulsed and would move away. They didn't want to dance with me. Others would seek me out. And they're like, I want to explore dancing with you because it's different than what you have to offer. So within a couple of years of dancing, then it became clear that there was a connection to Tai Chi, and Tai Chi was influencing my dance in a positive way. And then it wasn't until another 10 years that I learned about the connection between spiral movement and what Steve Paxton is teaching with the spiral roll. And he was identifying a common pattern in movement that probably by observing video of his own dance, this shape, this twisting shape, and how effective that is in making dance happen. It offers smooth transitions between you and your partner when you're twisted in a spiral, as opposed to clunking and rolling like square bricks. We roll together when we spiral. I wasn't conscious of it. There was, this is just pure luck or intuition. I don't know which, but a lot of luck, I think. I'm finding that this style of Tai Chi and studying the spiral movement of it, and then correlating that to dance, and now finding, okay, all right, this really does work. It really is effective. I met Steve Paxton at a conference for Contact Improv. The Brighton Bush Conference, Spring Jam, that's in Oregon every March. It was close to 15 years ago that I met Steve, and Hello, my name's Mark. Hello, I'm Steve. That it was very simple, very dry. I was just, I was like awestruck to be in his presence. Steve was a very humble, quiet man. He doesn't step up and demand to teach or demand to perform. He's very quiet. I never did study with Steve. I studied with his students, his disciples, Karen Nelson, Eve Kandau, and being at this Brighton Bush conference, there's many people who do teach his work in his presence, so I would learn the spiral rules and Simone Forti's crescent rules. Yeah, I studied with Nancy Stark Smith and Peter Bingham. A lot of people that are considered first generation, with Steve. Karen Nelson, Alito Alessi. The rolling point of contact is, it's not we're sliding against each other. We take a point of contact and then we roll. This is the rolling point of contact. And when you do the Aikido roll, or any kind of rolling, you're rolling against the floor and there's a single point of contact on your body that, this is the floor here, then it's here, then it's here, then it's here. And you roll across the floor. And pressing through a single point, and you have gravity pulling you against the floor. And when we take that concept to the dance, we lean into each other. There's the sense of gravity. We no longer are pressing against the floor. Now we're pressing against each other, and then we continue to roll. There's a communication that goes on there. I don't know where exactly my partner is going to go. They don't know where I am going. We make an effort to stay in contact with each other. And listen. And this is the shift in paradigm in contact improv, is this concept of I will listen to my partner, not grab and manipulate my partner and throw them around. Okay, there's a suggestion of speed. And then when we have two bodies leaning against each other with a stop, there's not much going on. But when we're moving, mistakes occur. One person is lower, and when one person is lower, the other person is higher, and they naturally rise. They naturally rise above the other. So this is where lifts happen organically in contact improv because of this momentous force and playing with momentum. And it's such a, this is what brings a big smile to my face when I'm dancing with a partner, and then you get this sort of this ride, and it feels like it goes on for an eternity, but it may only last a second or two. But it's like being at the children's park on a roller coaster. That's the sensation you have. You have the sensation of weightlessness and falling and being supported. And this is what contact improv dancers around the world live for. Sometimes you have a sensation that you're in water, again, a weightlessness sense. The story goes, Steve was doing something else entirely. You look at magnesium, and this is young men, male athletes, running at each other and colliding. And Steve was looking at this and what else could happen. And he was also looking at the Aikido roll, and he does an Aikido roll in magnesium, and he's considering what else might happen, and is there something performative about this? But this is the story. It's actually Nancy Stark Smith who saw this performance and said, I want to do this. Because that might have been an experiment that Steve ran and then went back to some other dance work. It may not have ever happened, contact improvisation. So we're not sure how much influence Nancy had on saying, let's do more of this. This is really interesting. And now Nancy is the gymnast that came to Steve with a gymnastics background, and young and very athletic. And who knows? Maybe she's the one who got it going up and around the neck and all this really, really fancy stuff. We don't know. Steve also has a background in gymnastics and a lot of dance, and Aikido and Tai Chi and Vipassana meditation. So maybe it would have happened. Maybe it's hard to know at this point how much influence Nancy had. Standing meditation, that was a big part of it. I've heard both Steve and Nancy say this. They started every session, when they got together to practice, they started every session with 20 minutes of the stand. And both of them have said this. They attribute the stand to the reason why nobody ever got hurt in the beginning. There was never any injuries. Even with all the jumper catcher exercises, all the slam dancing exercises that they did, nobody got hurt at the beginning. And so the stand, this is the thing about the stand, is it's tuning into how do you genuinely feel. And then that was transferred to the duet form, the head-to-head, and then a duet contact improv form. And still, it's about how do I feel, which is different than other improv performance. Because other improv performance isn't necessarily based on what physical sensations do I have. So I'm just making something up, and it could be very intellectual. I'm using my brain, not how do I physically feel. Contact improvisation demands that we listen to our partner in a sensual way, in a physical sensation. This goes back to Vipassana meditation, where you're systematically going through your body. What do I feel? What is the physical sensation? And what you get from a mind-body connection is, you may be thinking of a thought that happened to you 15 years ago, and that thought will generate a physical sensation, and you have the opportunity to observe this physical sensation. And you can have an emotion associated with that physical sensation. And observing. And what do you feel? And this is what the great gift of contact improvisation is. We're playing with our friend in this contact improv duet form, but the entire time we are really meditating, because we are constantly going back to what do I feel? What do I feel? And from here, we can go into great philosophical discussions about critical thinking. The rehabilitation, and this is something that I was intuition or luck, I don't know what, but finding a healing modality such as contact improvisation in which you are playing, it's non-competitive, and this made a huge difference in my ability to rehabilitate a neurological injury. I had a brain injury. There was hemorrhaging on the brain. And so and this damage would still show up on an MRI. And I was told, you're permanently disabled. You're never going back to work. I was told that very early on, and then it was reinforced many times over the next few years by doctors. And they said, that's it. This type of injury, you don't go back to work. You don't recover from this. Classical therapies, there's not much offered for neurological rehab at that time, 20 years ago. I was told to go lift weights 4 hours a day, 5 days a week. And I was like, what am I lifting weights for? That's not going to help my brain recover neurological. And at that time also, there was no word about neuroplasticity, or that the brain was plastic, or that it could recover. I was told, no, that's it. It's damaged. You can't recover that. And I didn't believe that. And that was also luck or intuition. I was like, no, this can be recovered. I need to do balance exercises, things that get neural synapses to grow and reconnect. And since then, now it is common knowledge, neuroplasticity, that you can recover brain damage at any stage. Doing any kind of exercise such as balance, not just thinking or doing puzzles or crossword puzzles, but movement exercises. Now choose your movement. Some movement exercises, like playing tennis, there's a gripping and a grabbing and a clenching of teeth and a competition, and I am going to kill the ball. In the beginning, why I chose to dance, because I was doing some of the classical rehab, such as weight training or jogging, but I had chose to do Tai Chi as my principal form of rehab. And so I was then, when I chose that, I was then demanded that you must now go to Tai Chi. You have to do something. You're not allowed to sit around the house and drink beer. You have to get up and go to rehab. Now you choose. Is it going to be lifting weights or Tai Chi? So doing that for 6 days a week, I wanted to dance on Sundays. So contact improv fell into my lap. I need to do something that is fun. And so it was just to bring some lightheartedness to, an otherwise very depressing, very miserable time in my life. And so to join dance, and and then also human contact and play, and no agenda. We're not trying to I don't know, beat each other with tennis balls or basketballs or volleyballs or hockey pucks. We're just trying to play and co-create something, and laughter and enjoyment of life. The baby needs to be held and touched and stroked and held, and this causes the brain to develop. And this is necessary, not just beneficial. It is necessary. It has to happen, or the brain doesn't develop. A child who's not held doesn't grow. The brain doesn't develop. It looks cool, so I think there's that. I think, you know, it's very performative, and it looks cool. It also looks like fun, and when you do it, it is fun. It's exhilarating. Being lifted. I love flying, getting up around someone's shoulders, and seeking disorientation, losing your sense of where you are, and just, you know, relying on your partner and relying on your own body to sort itself out, right? And not landing on the floor hard, but always landing softly. And somehow your body always knows exactly where the floor is without smashing the floor. So these are things to play with, to have fun with. But there is another part about what your question about the obsession with lifting, and I think it's a stage of where contact improv is right now, where there is a lot of gross manipulation, grabbing and lifting, and not the organic lifting where two bodies are just sort of swaying back and forth. One person takes a bigger step, so their center of gravity goes lower than the other, and the other person naturally rises. And I think that's kind of gone by the wayside in most contact improv that I see right now. A lot of it is this gross grabbing and lifting. There is the saying, what goes up must come down, but there's in contact improv is what goes down must come up. I think there's always an intention to climb. There's always an intention to up. Because if we're not making a conscious effort to go up, then we cuddle. We just lay down on the floor together, and there's not really anything interesting about that. You know, it's not very dance. It's not very, you know. So we make an intention to be at least standing, and then it's just a natural thing that if you're leaning it against your partner, that you will rise. Or they will rise. One person will climb. It depends on what your reason for dancing. I'm not that extrovert who wants to go on stage. I came to contact improv because I wanted to have fun. And so that play is what I quite enjoy. And I still have done minimal performance, just a few times. I'm not drawn to performing. So I don't have that narcissistic part in me. But I do love, both flying and then providing the opportunity for my partner to have that kind of ride, like a roller coaster ride, theme park ride. That's what it feels like. I've been in a dance with, you know, someone more than once where it feels like we are both in the air and we are both doing the lifting. And it's being observed by other people that it looks like you were both in the air and you were both lifting. This is defying physics. You can't both be in the air and both lifting. I can't be in the air and be lifting you off the ground without going down, according to physics. However, when the dance really gets going and there's momentum in the dance, this happens where both people are up. We both have the sensation that we're lifting the other person and we're both going up in the air. There's a sensation of weightlessness. And it's, I don't know, does levitation happen? Is it real? What if two minds are working on it together? What if we're in the right headspace? Can we levitate? It seems, my perception is, I can levitate. I can't levitate at will, I can't float right now. But when I'm dancing, there is a sense of levitation, and also my partner has that, and also the people who are watching our dance have that perception that we are levitating. I'm not sure how much I can really talk about it, but the Tai Chi that I study, we ignore energy. We don't play with energy. We don't draw energy out of the earth or down from the universe. We just play with our physical senses. And the story goes that you stay in this realm and energy happens. And so then my only real time to really play with Tai Chi is when I'm doing contact improv. With someone like Karen Nelson, who's just, she can jump up onto my shoulder and she weighs less than my cat. And I don't understand how she can do this. And I don't feel any weight on my shoulder. It's amazing. And then what do I develop? Do I develop superhuman strength? Am I channeling energy when that happens? Am I pushing her up? Is she making herself weightless? I have no idea. But here I am 20 years later, and I am more fascinated now with this dance form than ever. The curiosities are just, the questions are expanding. I'm not finding answers, I'm finding more questions. I have theories. Counterbalance is when I grab onto your arm and you lean away and I lean away and we are pulling. But we could also do it as a pushing way, a leaning in at the forehead. And there's you become not two people when you join like that, you become one organism. When you tune into that other person and you're feeling, you can feel their breath, their inhalation, their exhalation. You can feel movement going on in their body as they adjust to stay standing and meet you. You do the same thing. And then the dance happens and it's an organic thing. And neither person is leading or trying to make something happen. We're both in a listening state. There's other senses, proprioception. What else is happening with the brain? Apparently we only use 10% of our brain's ability. Maybe this is what we're accessing through contact improv, is the other 90% of the brain. Who knows what its abilities are? Someone said there are 14 senses. I'm still doing my research on that. But there's definitely more than 5. And proprioception is considered a sixth sense, so it's the psychic ability. And this is what I'm finding with contact improv. When I'm in that state of observing and feeling and sensing, the other realms open up. The psychic awareness of where is my partner going, what are they thinking, what's happening. Well, we're seeing it going down different avenues, and we are seeing the sort of pure path of now it's called old school, where we play this game in silence, no music. There are groups that are making a clear definition. No, we're not going to play music at this jam. For 5 days, we're not going to talk. There's no talking. It's a silent 5 days. And we can, cook and, wash dishes and make noise, but we're not going to talk. And we're not going to play music. And my own experience with going to meditation centers is that, this heightens the senses. You become more aware. Tension masks sensation. And that's saying that Steve has been quoted as saying, but so have many others before him, about if we can relax, we become more aware of sensation, other senses. And tension masks those so that we don't feel the sensations. So now we have different schools of contact improvisation. There's contact improv, as I said earlier, and ecstatic dance. There's contact improv done to loud music. And these end up just being, in my opinion, clutter, noise. They become noisy and causing tension, and not a pure focus to sensation, to physical sensation. And my experience is the real magic doesn't happen at those jams when there's music being played. You can have a good time, but it's not really amazing. You don't get that really magical ride of being weightless, or both people are being in the air, or mutual communication between you and an absolute stranger. And you can have the most amazing dance, having no experience of each other before. We believe that contact improv is spread in a viral way around the planet, where there is something pure about it, like a law of nature. If I drop something, it will fall, and that's a law of nature. If I put it here, it will stay there. That's a law of nature. There's something about the law of nature in contact improv that is now being understood around the world. And you get there, other people get there through different paths. I got there through Vipassana and Tai Chi and diligence, doing the stand, working together with people, just leaning in forehead to forehead. To the uninitiated, that looks so boring, but when you practice it a few times, it evolves, and you find the curiosity. And that's something my Tai Chi teacher said, is everything from the DNA to the Milky Way is spiraling, everything. And that's what he sees. And our muscles, our bones are spiraling around each other, most obviously the radius and ulna. They wrap around each other in a spiral, but then all the muscles are laid in spirals. In our Western medicine, we treat muscles in a linear, rectilinear fashion where they move in straights. But in Tai Chi, we exercise the same muscle in a spiral format, not in a straight line. The problem is that you can't test this to see how strong it's getting. You can't put a stronger weight on it and see if it's getting stronger the way you can this. Oh, I'm stronger today than I was yesterday. So anyway, I think that's the reason why we went down this path to this linear, observing the body in its linear movements, how it walks straight, but it doesn't walk straight. It twists back and forth, spiraling, even walking as a spiral movement. And I don't know what the Tai Chi masters were thinking 3,000 years ago, why we should observe spirals and practice them. I don't know what they were after. But it works. You are stronger. You are more efficient in movement. And contact improvisation really, really capitalizes on that concept. If you stay in a spiral, you have smooth transitions. You are stronger. You're a more effective mover. And if I get a chance, I'll ask Steve, why did you create the spiral roll on the floor? What were you trying to achieve? I love it. I practice it all the time. And I love the feeling that it has on my body, and I love what it does for the strength. But it just makes sense, is that if everything from the DNA to the Milky Way and everything in between is spiraling, this is how we should try to move. And we should try to implement this into our body instead of trying to, just be in squares and straight lines. There's something about twisting that is more effective. It was just, again, luck or intuition somehow making the connection from these. This is the part, okay, was I meant to do this? Why were these things put in my lap? Here, you should do Tai Chi. You'll feel better, and you may recover from your accident. Here, you should dance and do these exercises. You should try these exercises. Someone told me you should try these exercises and see what they do for you. Not, I didn't go out and seek them. I didn't know that they existed, and I didn't even know I was doing them until 10 or 15 years after I had been practicing. I wasn't that conscious of what spiraling was about. Now I can see, yeah, it matters to everything, and this is where the smooth movements happen, is from spiraling. This is where you experience weightlessness or superhuman strength. You're a much stronger person when you move in a spiral motion. If I was, I hate always going back to the fighting, but that's what people are impressed with is, if you do this type of drilling punch, it's a much more effective punch than doing that. I never met, and Steve Paxton saw her performance, we're going a long way back into the 60s, saw her performance as an improv performer, and was, apparently he was mesmerized what she did. Simone Forti created the crescent roll, and Steve asked her permission, can I use that in my body of work, material for the spine? And she gave him her permission so Steve can use it. And it informs us in our movement. It's a very it's not a natural way of moving the crescent roll, but you have to think about it, and it brings consciousness to the body, and in particular the whole back of the body, and every other dance form The audience is in front of me and I perform to the audience. And I don't turn my back to the audience in any other dance form. But in contact improvisation, you have two dancers who end up oftentimes exploring each other back to back or front to back. But the back is always coming into the dance. We are not two bodies facing each other and then we move apart and we move back and forth. We're always in a spiraling movement, and we end up using our backs, and we need to be aware of our back. And this is the benefit, I think, of the crescent roll, of having to be aware of my whole body. Definitely are reaching out and touching your partner and feeling how much force are they putting, how fast are they moving, what are they pushing against me, should I be, and then you have this inner dialogue. Should I push back? Or do they want me to move this way? Do I resist? Do I resist with great resistance, little resistance? These are all questions in your mind. Like how do I react to this stimulus? But where is my arm in space? And if I close my eyes, can I find my nose? Can I find my partner? Where is my hand in space? And this is proprioception. This develops. And this leads to far more neurological synapse creation than other exercises. It is now known from kinesiology that playing and not being competitive is far better for brain development. And so you could make the argument that tennis is also proprioceptive. I reach out with my tennis racket and I hit the ball in space. And so if you watch the ball, a good tennis player doesn't even have to keep their eye on the ball. They know exactly where it will be in space. They can track it with their proprioception. And their racket in their hand is also a proprioceptive act. But there's this added component of being tense and grinding the teeth and tensing the body, which is different than staying relaxed and playful. I've forgotten, it's been so long since I started Contact Improv, so now I forget that there is this sort of taboo, and I just want to dance, and so joining somebody at the pelvis seems like a natural place to dance now without it being sexual. Like my mind just doesn't go there. A good massage therapist doesn't go into any kind of sexual mind thought when they're working on a person, and so there's no reason why a dancer needs to go there either. But from the Chinese martial arts, this core is the dantian. From the Japanese martial arts, it's the hara. This is where our energy is. This is where our strength is. Move from here. Ballet is out here. And to do the same movement from a internal martial art, I move from here. This is initiating the movement of my hand. Not this, it's this, moving from here. And so dancing from here, dancing here to joining at your pelvis, to my pelvis, this is where I think there's far greater communication. This is where the center of gravity is. When your center of gravity goes below mine because you took a step away, my center of gravity rises above yours. And here we can make the play begin, where we're now going up and down and we have momentum between us to play with. Contamination, I think, Steve said that his one concern that over time contact improvisation as an art form will lose the stand, and it's the appreciation to just stand and feel your physical sensations. And this is a metaphor for what's going on with the world, our addiction to this phone thing that everybody's walking around with, and it's getting us away from what do we feel. And that's, I think, a problem with society. And that's what I think will be a problem with contact improvisation, where people come to it with agendas. I want to have something happen. I want to meet someone. I want to fall in love. I want to, I want to stand up and put on an amazing performance. I'm not sure what the various agendas are, but I want to be the DJ, and this is polluting just go out on the dance floor and stand there for 20 minutes, and when you feel like moving, then move. So this is what I think is at risk.
I hope that after this interview, Contact Improvisation keeping alive during at least 50 years more. Thank you, Mark, for this interview.
Thank you. Thank you, Sebastian.
I started out in search of ordinary things. How much of a tree bends in the wind? I started telling the story without knowing the end. Be darker, then I got lighter, then I got dark again. And something too big to be seen was passing over and over me. Well, it seemed like a routine case at first. With the death of the shadow came a lightness of verse. But the darkest of nights in truth still dazzle, and I work myself until I'm frazzled. Up in search of ordinary things. Like, how can a wave possibly be? I started running, and the concrete turned to sand. I started running, things didn't pan out as planned.